Damien with us, how are you?
Morning, Joe. How are you?
Very good. Are you a Bruno Fernandes punch volley man or a Matty Cash, little bit of Techers flourish kind of a guy?
Oh, definitely Bruno. But the I can appreciate the aesthetics of Matty Cash and what he did. I clocked it straight away. I mean, even the way he held the pose on the slow-mo replay was just a thing of beauty.
Yeah. He's definitely a kid who liked Beckham growing up. You can just the hair, the body shape, it was as John McGinn was saying, go back, go home.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful. It's something you do after training. You know, a stray ball flies your way, and you just try on that technique, and very rarely does it come off. But to do it in a game of that magnitude,
Yeah.
and then I think it was Luca Digne pulled it down. I think was it, and then cut back inside for Buendia. It was a brilliant goal. In fairness, there's not much. I mean, you pick holes in from a Tottenham point of view, but not many.
No.
It was a bloody good goal.
Well, I think even afterwards, but Buendia was like, yeah, it was a good goal, and mine was the worst part of it. That kind of a moment.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
does highlight the quality of the Premier League these days, though, in so many ways. Why, because even on commentary straight away, Neville was like, "Oh, that Bruno pass. Why is it so good?"
The speed at which he got it back in at, and obviously the accuracy, and it's not an easy ball. It was on the full, so that's a tough technique at the best of times. I mean, you play football enough, and if you're a midfield player and you go over and let's say you've a throw in on the left hand side, and the thrower throws it to you, and you've got to get it back to the throw. That's a difficult one, even So to do it on the full and to get it back into the area really caught Liverpool by surprise.
Yeah,
You're expecting them to take a touch, which gives you an extra second to reorganize, and then maybe someone has a quick look over the shoulder and realizes that United have numbers at the back, and you can readjust. Um, or he tries that and he just absolutely skies it out for throwing on the far side, or he kind of hits it off his studs and the first man tidies it up. Either which way, it was a beautiful assist from Bruno.
yeah, amazing. Are you telling me from a throw and you've punched a volley back at the thrower's head a few times? Is that kind of the
Joe, I tell you now, right, man. Me as a player, I was 10 out of 10 for that because that was the bread and butter that I had to be 10 and 10,
okay?
10 out of 10 for.
Yeah,
I might not be able to do the Matty Cash stuff, but I prided myself on that all 10 of those would have been on the grass, set perfectly on the thrower's left foot for him to go the way he needs to go to. That is the stuff that I concentrated on. Nobody ever notices that. But, in warm ups, pre training, that was the stuff I always in my head. When you're going around to different stations and it's like five half volleys each, like five volleys, five chest, whatever.
yeah,
I prided myself on being 50 out of 50 on all of those.
yeah. Okay.
And that's one thing that I was very, very good at. Because you know what? People always overlook the easy stuff, and that is the easy stuff. And I watch football now, man, and I see kids, they don't pay any attention to that. Even like watching a schoolboy game around Cork, thrower throws it in, throws it to the wrong foot, the setter like bobbles it back into them, or the thrower throws it around his hips, and you're like, what's he supposed to do with that? A throwing is not a difficult thing, but nobody practices it because nobody places any level of importance on it. Whereas
Yeah,
I knew the value and stuff like that.
yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. And I dare say you get no credit for something like that, but it's a kind of
No, but it keeps in the team. You know what I mean? Like if I'm
professional to
playing centre
professional.
back and
Yeah,
my left back throws it back to me, I got to be aware of the ball I'm giving back to my left back. Is he going to get closed down by the right winger? If so, I've got to put it on his right foot, and I've got to put it at a pace that he can play first time. Like if I wrap that back at him and he has to take a first touch, he's a sitting duck for the right winger, right? So I've got to set that at a pace that he can deal with it. Or vice versa, if the centre forward's running me down and I'm giving it to my left back, I don't want to give it to him on his right foot because the centre forward is going to angle and kill him. So I need to get that out in front of him. So if I get that out in front of him, he can at least take a step across the line of the ball and the centre forward clatters into the back of him. So, thinking about that level of detail was stuff that I did absolutely focused on because it's the bread and butter, it's the basic stuff. Nobody pays any attention to that. Everyone just wants to do the Matty Cash stuff,
yeah,
which is great.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's funny now. So United have had not won at Anfield since 2016. Liverpool have not lost 4 games in a row since 2014. I think people aware of that heard that a lot yesterday. Liverpool have Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany now, so they're just caught in games, games, games. Whereas United, as people sort of noted at the start of the season will now have the benefit of another kind of week off and rest up, and then they've Brighton on Saturday coming, Nottingham Forest, and then Tottenham Hotspur. So potentially a very nice month for Manchester United. The stat that just kind of caught me is like they're within 2 points of the top four. They're within 2 points of Liverpool. Like United now suddenly closer to Liverpool than Liverpool are to Arsenal, for instance. I've never seen mood music around a team flip so dramatically. I know it happens in the Premier League at the best of times, but this actually did feel like so big for Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, look, first of all, I thought it was an incredible Sunday afternoon of football. I really enjoyed the game. It was like I know a lot of people were bemoaning certain big games this year that were just kind of petering out. It was a great game. The tactical battle that was on display. The early goal was the thing that made that game, because it gave Manchester United something to hang on to. And they dug in and they've done brilliant. They deserve an awful lot of credit for it, Manchester United. I think they did great. And you're right, they just seem to be picking up the right amount of results. Do I think that yesterday is going to be a turning point and this is like a watershed moment and all of a sudden now Amorim is going to kick into gear? I don't think so. I still think that Brighton next week, looks like a difficult one. But when you look at the tactical approach from Manchester United and them getting the early goal, it played right into their hands. I mean, it couldn't have fallen any more beautiful for them, and they deserved it. I mean, they started the game brightly. They got the balls forward, but then once you get that goal, you get something to hang on to. And all of a sudden, those sprints, those runs, those long busting runs to get out and stop crosses are a little bit easier because you've got something to defend. But the test for Manchester United, as it always will be Brighton at home next. Where they don't get to set up in what essentially was a 5-5-0 formation and leave Sesko on the bench. That'll work at Anfield and the fans will accept that because I think the fans are obviously realistic about where Manchester United are and they were never going to go to Anfield and force the game and take the game to Liverpool. And once they got the early goal, then they could just drop in nice and narrow. And I think Ruben Amorim got it spot on with his team selection going the route he was going. Harry Maguire was the perfect player to come in. I mean, it was a throwback to England 2018 where he had Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice in front of him and all the insulation that he needed was never exposed, was never left open. And if you want someone to head crosses, block shots, get in the way of things, Harry Maguire was basically put on a performance yesterday that convinced Manchester United to pay £80 million for him after that World Cup. It's just unfortunate that I'm not sure that way is sustainable for Manchester United going forward. Sesko is going to have to come back into the team. The wing backs are going to have to offer something going forward. And then, of course, the spaces are left where Manchester United continuously get caught out. But Amorim needed that massively, hugely, just for his own peace of mind. It was only last pre-international break we were questioning whether he was going to make it through the international break or not. So it was an incredible win for them and they deserved it and they worked hard and they showed great togetherness. And I am pleased with the manager because he's been under an awful lot of pressure.
Yeah. Like it really went their way though,
Yeah.
Liverpool hit the woodwork 3 times. That Gakpo header. It was Gakpo, wasn't it? An open goal basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like they hit the woodwork like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
3 times, and then they had the chance with the header, and I think I read this morning somewhere that Gakpo had a higher XG than Manchester United on his own.
Yeah, Liverpool were
Right.
2.74 goals XG, United 1.2, 19 Liverpool shots to 12, 63% possession. Isak had that very good chance as well. Now it's a good save, and I'm sure in Saint-Lamond they're feeling very good about the way he has kind of just instantly taken to life. So it's not to take away from Manchester United, but
No.
I don't know, like they got away with it's too harsh because they did look better in many ways, like out of possession, very solid in some respects, albeit 19 shots, and then with the ball, particularly in Mbomo and Cunha, like really growing into things. But this kind of turning point stuff, I agree with you. Like,
It's not there.
no, it's not. It's not. It's really like, put it this way: if remember that brilliant passage where Dalot gives it away, falls to Salah, and he fizzes one into Gakpo, and it's a great first touch, and he sets himself off the post. Like if they score that, what score is that at the end of the game? I don't think it's 2-1 to United.
No, it's not. But again, we can't get into that because the game fell absolutely perfectly for Manchester United. Everything that went about it. I'll tell you from my own experience, right? Like I've gone to Anfield and won, right? Gone to Stamford Bridge and got a win, right? At no point did we ever go to those stadiums and play the opposition off the park,
Yeah.
right? You understood that if you're going to Anfield, you're gonna your goalkeeper's gonna have to be brilliant, or they're going to have to have a really off day, and you're going to have one of the best days you could possibly have. Like that's just a given, right? And I think that's what Manchester United got yesterday. They got like that Liverpool just didn't quite have their shooting boots with them. Um, Van Dijk said afterwards that everything felt a little bit rushed, and it probably did. Only by only by virtue of the fact that the early goal just threw Liverpool, because Liverpool are coming off three defeats, and all of a sudden now they're kind of going, geez, we're 1-0 down to Manchester United after 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden they get a little bit antsy and they start snatching at things, forcing passes and not being as calm as what they were. And equally, Manchester United, right? We got 1-0 lead. We don't have to do anything. Like we have it. We're ahead. So we just get to sit in now and do more of what the manager asked for. And that's exactly what they did. So it was the perfect storm for Manchester
Yeah.
United, and it fell their way. And if you were to play that game again tomorrow and they didn't get that early goal, it would have played out differently. But that doesn't matter.
No, I
They
know.
got the result.
Yeah. Ifs, buts, and maybes. And psychologically sitting in the way they did in a 5-4-1 or 5-5-0, as you said, psychologically that's fine when you're 1-0 up. That feels very different to we're 0-all, we're being completely bossed and penned back.
Yeah, I think because if it's 0-0, Liverpool will probably find a better rhythm because the game is 0-0. The crowd is on their side. They'll sense that Manchester United are sitting in. They'll sense that Manchester United are, nervous as well. And Liverpool are just a lot more patient. Like, I covered the Everton Man City game, and that was 0-0 till very, very late in it. At no point did Manchester United or Manchester City, sorry, panic because it was 0-0. They just kept doing it. They kept doing it over and over and over and over again, and everything was just, kept the same. So there was no panic. But when you go 1-0 down, especially at home, it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult for Liverpool to stay calm.
Yeah. Um, on that opening goal, it's kind of emblematic of how well he's done generally. Like, Mbuemo really does look like a good signing. Like, the way he gets up off the deck, when United don't even actually, you watch it again a few times, they don't actually even have possession, but he's just so willing. I appreciate it's in the first minute, but still, there's a lot of United players of the last decade who would have stayed down and taken their time to get up, but he's up, and that hard run in behind Van Dijk. And then the finish, obviously, very decent as well. Like, it's brilliant. It really is brilliant, and he was very good. What did you make of Van Dijk in that moment? Was he entitled to kind of think, oh, this guy's not gonna, he's making a run. I can sort of half hand him off, half get back, or did you look at Van Dijk there and think there's something like glaringly bad about that?
Yeah, it's a real tight technical one, that, because I played left side centre back and the player's coming down that side. So you're first centre back,
Mm.
right? So as first centre back, I know people are saying that like Van Dijk should have like sprinted to close that down. But if you sprint to close that down, you open up that inside passing channel
Yeah,
so the ball can go into Mbuemo's feet. So if you cut off that one down the side and that ball gets fired inside Van Dijk and Kanat doesn't get a cut, he touches that and hits it.
yeah,
And on top of that, too, as first centre back, you have to hold your line because if you drop, you ruin everything for everybody. So as first centre, I don't think Van Dijk did a whole pile wrong there. I think Kanate probably could have read it earlier. Like if Kanate had somebody outside him on his backside, I could imagine why he held. But there was two players, I can't remember who the second one was, were trying to kind of make the same run,
yeah,
and he was looking at the both of them. And that's one of those situations where you just like sprint across early and deal with that ball. I think Van Dijk's entitled to expect when that ball gets slid down his outside shoulder
yeah,
that he's expecting Kanate to be behind him. As a centre back, again, like it's easy in hindsight to say, well, the ball got slid, so he should have dealt with it. But to deal with that, you'd have to go a little bit early. And as soon as you go a little bit early, that ball will get fired on your
yeah.
inside shoulder there. And that's difficult for Van Dijk to do. I don't think he did a whole pile wrong there.
That's
And
yeah.
if he drops too early, all of a sudden now he's the deepest centre back. And when your first centre back is the deepest centre back, you are in all sorts of problems because
Mm,
it kills Kanate. It's the second centre back is the one that can see everything.
yeah,
He's the one that decides when to drop, when to play offside, or what he wants to do. So I would put more blame on Kanate there. But then I watched it back about 10 times and I was thinking he was over. It was just a really, really precise ball and it was a really, really precise run. Kanate is probably looking at Mbuemo and he's thinking, yeah, he can't slide that ball down there. Because remember, you're running a release state very, very quickly because the goalkeeper's going to start coming into view, So you probably only had maybe a 3 yard by 3 yard box that you could stop that ball in, where the goalkeeper couldn't get it, Van Dijk couldn't get it, and Kanate couldn't get it, but Mbuemo could.
mm,
And that was the quality of the pass. It was absolutely perfect for Mbuemo to get there. So I've been in Kanate's position where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking they're not going to slide that.
yeah,
They can't slide that. The room isn't there. And again, if he comes over too early and covers too much, then he's going to realise the space that he's left between him and Bradley could get exposed as well. So he's trying to keep it in shape. Like, Joe, there's a lot of moving parts in that goal. And these are all split-second decisions. Like, your brain is taking in a huge amount of information at a huge rate before you decide what you're going to do. Konate just hesitated slightly. And again, with hindsight, you would probably say that Konate should have come across. I don't place much blame on Van Dijk for that, to be honest with you,
No, I'm
because
with
as a
you.
left side centre back,
I'm with
I
you.
think
He's entitled to hand off. Like, I know they were saying on the TV yesterday, was he just waves a hand and he doesn't get back. But your point about, well, if he goes too deep too quickly and Mbeumo checks his run, or someone else gets it short, so he's entitled to hedge his bets a little bit, as you said, and then he does hand off. So Konate, but then your point about, well, Konate doesn't want. They gamble, and then it's just it's a really good one, and they're like, I didn't know you were going to pull it off. It's like that kind of moment for them.
Yeah, because again, they were inside the 18-yard box, so you're entitled to expect any ball that gets slid down the outside shoulder of Van Dijk.
Yeah.
If the yard over hit, the goalkeeper gets there. If the yard under hit, maybe Van Dijk gets back. You know what I mean? Or if there's not enough pace on it, Van Dijk might actually cut it out at source before he even gets there. But the pace and the weight of the pass was absolutely perfect. It was in that small little box that I said. Sometimes as a defender, you will look back at it. I mean, it's not something you drop Konate over. You know what I mean? Because when the manager looks at back, or any defensive coach watches that back, you're going, it was such a close one. No, in hindsight, Konate, you probably should have come across and dealt with that. But I understand why you didn't, or I understand why you hesitated slightly. But again, you kind of go, look, in hindsight, I would much rather you come across and deal with that Konate, and then Conor Bradley comes in, and then you kind of fill that hole that Konate is probably worried about leaving. And then, you're set. But again, you can't defend to that extent where everybody just ultra defensive all the time,
Yeah.
It was a good goal from Manchester United point of view. They exploited the weakness. If there was any mistake in it, did Van Dijk need to go for the second one? So after he won the first header and then he won the second header, he goes in again, right? And then that creates that huge gap. But even then, he still gets back. But again, Van Dijk's a front foot defender. If you're saying to Van Dijk, you can't do that, then you're taking away the very essence of Virgin van Dijk. He's an incredible front foot defender. And when you're making 100 of these decisions a game, you might get the odd one that's a fraction wrong. It wasn't. I don't think it's a glaring error where you're looking at the back four going, "Oh, we're in crisis." It was just a well-worked goal, and you got to give Manchester United credit for that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, too, they beat the goalkeeper as well. So
you're not buying any of this Van Dijk's washed up talk, which is circling around.
Who said that? Van Dijk's what? Sounds like something you would say there, Joe. Van Dijk, who said? Someone said no. He's not washed. He didn't have a great game yesterday. I didn't think he was amazing. I think Konate was reasonably good. But again, Manchester United were just very clinical with the opportunities that they had.
And do you agree Mbeumo, Cunha really starting to warm to the task?
Yeah, I think Mbeumo has warmed to it since day one. I think he's been brilliant since he's come into Manchester United. He really is kind of taking on that talismanic role. Just to go back to playing against players like Mbeumo, nightmare for defenders because they're so fast and they're so strong and they're so direct, and they make your life miserable because they never stop moving and you're always worried about where they are, and they always, one of these players that were, 50-50 and the ball always seems to squirm out their way, it always seems to fall for them. And then all of a sudden they get a touch and they're away again and they're away again. And, it gets really, 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 really difficult to handle those types of players,
Yeah, I can imagine. Because it's fun. We'll get on to Liverpool in a bit more depth in a second because, this quote-unquote crisis, you watch the last 4 games, it's different things in different games arising, but definitely yesterday, as well as not taking their chances, which is a big part of it, that Manchester United right-hand side, that Liverpool left-hand side was almost more problematic, where Kirkez was supposed to be looking after Ahmad, and then Van Dijk had a constant, do I step in with Mbeumo, do I step out, kind of one of those games where he was just always in a nuisance position a lot for him. That was where they got most of their joy, actually. Whereas it's interesting with Liverpool, a lot of times it's been down the right-hand side, Salah not tracking back. But that United right-hand side seemed to just cause Liverpool bother most of the day.
And that's Mbeumo because he's so lively. Work rate is incredible, but he's always thinking good things, thinking positive. Where's this ball going to break? He's always lively. He always picks up second balls really, really quickly. He gambles an awful lot and tries to read where things are going to go. And he gets it right a lot because his instincts are obviously very, very good. And that's why he is such a handful. Kirk has not been a good signing for Liverpool. He has not hit the ground running yet. When you look at what Liverpool expect from a fullback, dives in an awful lot, skips by him. There's a couple of times where he goes to ground. like almost like he's trying too hard, but he's not settled at all. So that's probably a big reason why Ahmad had so much joy down that right hand side. Um, you look at the other side of it again, Joe. I mean, Mo Salah could become a problem for Liverpool. You know, at some point, it took him off yesterday, and they needing a goal, which never happened ever, and he won't be happy with that. So he was given that new contract. I think when the contract discussions were going on, I think I said it at the time. I was consistent. I said you need to be careful because he's getting to that age now where if those production levels drop off at all, like he was scoring 20, 25, 30 goals a season. No, he's not great in build-up play. He's not great at tracking back. All he brings to the party is goals, right?
Yeah.
That's his thing. And if the goal level dropped off, I said if this goal level production rate dropped off to say, 14 to 17, all of a sudden you're kind of going, geez, what else are you contributing? No, 14 to 17 is still an amazing, tally. But when you're used to getting 20, 25, 30 goals a season, and he does not look himself. Like he doesn't even seem to be getting, he had a great chance that he missed, but he doesn't look happy. I think he's missing Trent. I just think him and Trent had a chemistry down that right hand side. I think Liverpool are missing Trent. In games like that last night. I was watching that game and I think to myself, that was a game for Trent. Low block. How many times do Liverpool get faced with a low block and Trent just ambles into that inside right position and just puts a cross in that's just on the money and breaks down that low block? Or how many times we've seen with a free kick or a shot from distance or a beautifully caressed pass to put Salah in on goal. Conor Bradley is a brilliant right back and he's going to develop into an even better one.
Yeah.
But Trent's skill set, was incredible, especially against playing. And the amount of times last year that he got Liverpool, not just last year, but over every year, got Liverpool out of jail by creating something out of nothing in a game that wasn't really going their way. And I think Salah and Bradley just haven't developed that same type of chemistry yet.
Yeah. Because if I remember correctly, for a lot of last season, early on, for the better part of it, when the Salah contract discussion was never ending, you were kind of like, in my gut, I feel maybe the time is right to let him go. And it just got to a point, and maybe Liverpool were of a similar viewpoint, but it just reached a crescendo almost midway through, 3/4 of the way through, where the numbers were so astronomical. You just like, well, you just can't let this go. And now if this is the fall, then it's going to really pinch them.
But Joe, what do you do if he does? Like, if his production level drops off, and you have options now because you have options across the front, do you drop him? He's never been dropped before. He's never even been taken. Very rarely has he ever been taken off before.
I don't think he takes that well. I don't think he buys into the you're going to make an impact last 20 minutes kind of guy for me. So I think it's very difficult.
Yeah, I know you've got a player. He's I would imagine he's their highest paid player.
Yeah.
So they've took that leap and they've given him that contract. And listen, I'm not saying Salah's finished. He could very well come good and he might just be having a slow start to the season. But he's never had a slow start to anything. He's just been like a machine for the last God knows how many years. And it was always the fear that if you went that one more contract with him, but I think that his form last year, Liverpool found it very, very difficult to let him go.
Do you think they'll know from the science? Like, is it possible that will they know from his numbers are down? Will they know that's age related as opposed to he's just?
I don't know I don't know what his numbers were. He was never a numbers guy. He was a goals guy. You look at Salah's sprints. Imagine sitting on a Monday morning trying to show Salah his physical output. You're looking at going, I scored 3 goals. Leave me alone, man. Like, I don't need to see this. I judge what I'm playing against. If my fullback is tight, I'll run him behind. If he sits off me, my numbers are hugely variable on what I see, and I'm a very field orientated guy. But like, he could cause a problem for Liverpool. If you start having to drop him, and he could make life very, very difficult for Arne Slot.
Well, what's interesting now for Slot is he's got relentless games coming. And he has a lot of options. If he was to sit down and look at the permutations of how he sets his team up, he's got 10, 15, 20 different combinations he could tinker around with. And he doesn't have the time to find it. Too many options can kill a man sometimes. So he's going to have to stumble upon it pretty quickly because right now the alchemy of it is off. And then what's doubly difficult for him is like, I'm not getting a fair representation of the players. Like, so, Isak is not Isak yet, and Salah's off. So it's very hard for him to kind of find the missing pieces whilst games keep coming and he can't afford to drop any more points realistically. So does one jump out to you as like, that's just the obvious front four?
Yeah, I think these managers are very good at not panicking, right? He'll look at that game yesterday and he'll say, 9 times out of 10, we play the way we played yesterday, we win that game, right? Yesterday was just the one. So we're not going to like throw out all the good work that we did. Even though we were playing against a low block of Manchester United, we still sliced them open regularly. Remember, Isak had that one-on-one chance where he got played in down the side and Le Mans scored, saved it with his leg. You know, the header from Gakpo, hitting the woodwork, getting into good opportunities. Like, it's very hard to fault your team when they create as many opportunities as what they did.
Yeah.
So they will look at it and they won't say, "Oh my God, we lost the game against Manchester United. I'm going to forget everything good we did and I'm going to create panic." That's the last thing the players want to see. I would imagine. In fact, I would be fairly certain that Klopp's team talk this morning when they're having their recovery before they go to Germany will be like, "Look, these are all the good things we did, guys. We do this. We produce this 9 times out of 10. We will not win nine games without a doubt.
Yeah.
There'll always be the outlier where the opposition score early and then they dig in and they get a couple of decisions and we're just wasteful with our finishing, or we're just not as clinical as what we should be. So I don't think he'll panic. You know, he doesn't seem the type. I watched his interview afterwards. Very calm, very measured, very accurate assessment of the game. He'll just keep doing what he's doing, and he'll just know that Ekitike will give you something if you start him. Isak will find his feet. You got to remember, Isak was training on his own for 8 weeks, right? He wasn't even in a team environment, and it doesn't matter how much one-on-one work you do out in Dubai or wherever he was. Like, you know, you're getting into a team environment, you're understanding Liverpool's system, and you're getting your fitness levels up as well. It's going to take him a little bit of time, but I'm pretty sure that he will hit the ground running. There's absolutely, I mean, if he signed on the very first day that Liverpool put a bid in, which was in the off season, he'd have had a full pre-season with Liverpool, and we would be seeing a different Isak. Salah one worries me more.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, you know, Florian Wirtz will kind of find the pace of the Premier League, and if he doesn't, they have options there. Zabazlai is a brilliant number 8 anyway. It's obviously a different type of number 8, but the Salah one is the one that's concerning me the most, because he was relatively anonymous in that game yesterday. You know, obviously playing against a low block. Salah normally cuts inside and gets shots off. Didn't really see a lot of that from him. And at his age, and with the many miles that he's got on the clock, I just wonder, is this kind of the beginning of the downward trajectory?
Yeah.
And it happens quick, Joe. I've always said that. You know what I mean? People always think that, you know, it pretty much happens overnight. You know, where one day you're in training and you like every player can remember that. Every player that like played at a certain level, you'll have that one moment where you've gone, "Oh my God, that's never happened to me before," or "Oh Jesus, that player's never did that to me," or you know, and you try and pass it off as in like, "I'm having a bad week," or, you know, "I don't feel great," or, but then the good feeling never comes back around. You know, that not feeling great just seems to stay with you, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, "Oh my God," you go into defensive type mode, and I think it could be that quick for Salah. It really could, especially a player whose whole game is built on dynamism, speed. You know, the fullbacks, defenders he's playing against are getting quicker, they're getting more dynamic, whereas he's only kind of going to start drifting down. Maybe Liverpool do see it in the numbers, in terms of, you know, his training loads, his sprint data, his top speeds, all this type of stuff. But I think it's just with the eyes more than anything else.
Yeah. So, and how tricky? Well, look, we don't know the guy, obviously, so it's hard to know, and we don't know the exact dynamic of the dressing room. Slot certainly has credit in the bank that he could grasp the nettle and bench him for a period. I mean, in a way that would have been very difficult for him 12 months ago. Do you think that causes ructions? Do you think that destabilizes the thing? Or do you know, players are fairly kind of cutthroat and somehow they might sense Salah's not Salah and they'll respect the manager all the more?
You see, Salah carries so much weight in that changing room. If he's not happy, everybody's going to know he's not happy.
Yeah.
If he walks in every day with a puss on him and isn't training properly, and all of a sudden he's out of the team, then all of a sudden everyone's going to be very wary that, geez, Mo Salah's just walked into the canteen. He's not happy. Let's just all stay away. You know, I would imagine he does carry that type of that personality. You look at players like Mo Salah. Is he capable of reinventing himself into a different position? Is he capable, Ryan Giggs-esque, of, you know, having numerous rebirths and changing position? I don't know. I'm not sure he's technically good enough to play on the inside. I don't know if he's technically good enough to play up front. You might just put him up front and say, "Look, you know what, Mo, we're going to get you. Your greatest attribute is scoring goals. We're going to get you in between the width of the goals and just hang around there, Erling Haaland kind of type stuff, and we'll get you chances and you finish them." But I think your days of starting on the touchline and sprinting in behind centre backs or darting in behind full backs and cutting inside in your left foot and running away from people, you know, might be behind you slightly.
Yeah.
Is he capable of that? I don't know. But it could be very, very difficult if Mo Salah's not playing. He's knocking on the manager's door every day. Why am
Yeah.
I not playing? Why am I being the team? You know? But that's for Arne Slot to deal with.
uh, and on that broad, like, oh, Liverpool crisis kind of thing, like, so everyone's saying defensively, it's like porous. Carragher's been saying that from week one. And whilst they are conceding more goals than this time last year, you are still talking about 2 goals to United yesterday, 2 goals against Chelsea. That was very much down the Conor Bradley side, as opposed to yesterday, which was the opposite side. Galatasaray, 1 goal conceded away from home. I think that's within the parameters of acceptable. And then against Crystal Palace, again, that was its own kind of different thing where Canate just seemed to have the worst game of his career. It was like bizarre almost, and
Yeah.
Palace kind of got them on the counter attack a lot. So when people say Liverpool in crisis, the Salah thing aside, and I appreciate the Salah thing's big. I don't. I find it hard to work out what's gone wrong or why it's not working. It doesn't look all that bad to me, and it's like different things, different types of games. It's not like one set in stone problem.
Yeah, you got to look at their other games that they won as well. They weren't great performances,
I
but they were
appreciate
getting
that.
wins. Remember, there
Yeah.
was a lot of like, "Geez, Liverpool are getting away with it, and you won't always do that. And this is proof of that.
Yeah.
Look, they've signed a lot of players, Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak, um, you know, they had a new goalkeeper playing yesterday. So there's a little bit of change. And as Man City have shown last year, that when you have a lot of change, you lose your rhythm a bit. There's a familiarity that within the team where you're like going, okay, what are we now? Or what way are we playing with Isak in the team? Because we never really had an Isak last year. Okay, we had Darwin, but a lot of time we didn't play. It was maybe Luis Diaz played up front, now all of a sudden we have a focal point at number 9. We've lost Luis Diaz's energy because he was
Yeah.
similar to Mbuemo, just, and I always thought that he would be a big miss for Liverpool because in games like that, it's just his Tasmanian devil type performances, where he was just zipping around the park and getting on second balls and regaining possession for them. So I think he's a bit of a miss as well. But there's nothing massively wrong with Liverpool. They just need to
No.
just rediscover their identity and what are we now? And when new players come into a changing room, you're always kind of looking around going, okay, where do I fit in this? Where's my space? What do I offer? What do I bring to the table? And trying to get to know players and understand how fellas play. And that's why you've a settled team like Liverpool last year.
Mm.
They had a great understanding and everyone knew their place and everyone just went out and did it and they won games. So,
Yeah.
big new signings, a couple of players have gone. So they're just probably struggling a little bit, but I've no doubt that Liverpool will get it going again and they will absolutely be thereabouts come the end of the season.
Yeah. I'm same, I have to say. And then to round off the United chat, it probably sounds like we poo-pooed what is like a very good performance in that type of a game against Liverpool. What I'm hearing from you is there is one, rub of the green a little bit, but also with Brighton, Nottingham Forest and Spurs coming up, and you're a bit more on the front foot, that's where you're going to see, well, you know, Bruno, Casemiro, Harry Maguire, that triumvirate,
Yeah.
very different games to what was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at both wing backs yesterday, they're both with a flat back five,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Harry Maguire, two centre backs outside him, and he was sitting in the middle. He was so insulated. And he was great at getting headers, getting blocks, and getting tackles. He's great at that. But all of a sudden, now you play that same formation, but it's a different implementation of it.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, now you have possession and your wing backs are in advanced. They're joining in. Ahmad is really high up the pitch. All of a sudden, De Ligt maybe steps in to join in one of the attacks. That turnover that we always see with Manchester United. Now that's where, like Harry Maguire is an incredible football player, very, very good, but it's a specific skill set for a specific system. And you give him that, like he had with England, and you give him that what he had yesterday, and Man United want to be a counter-attacking team. That's fine,
Yeah.
but you can't play. It's not sustainable to go through the whole season playing like that.
Yeah.
Does that mean Sesko doesn't play? Because essentially it was Mount and Mbuemo wide that dropped back in, and Cunha almost dropped in on top of Gravenberch. So it was almost like a 5-4 or even a 5-5-0, but definitely 5-4-1. And it was all hands on deck. And then you got the early goal. Like, what if you're not going to get the early goal every week where you can cling on and dig in? So, is that sustainable moving forward? I don't think that matters. They got the win. They should enjoy it. I'm not poo-pooing. I think they've been brilliant yesterday, Manchester United, and they deserved it, and they deserve an awful lot of credit. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to go to Anfield and win, especially with Liverpool as champions. Incredible achievement from them. But it's not this watershed corner turned moment that I think certain people think it is. But they deserve it. They absolutely deserve their
Yeah.
Monday in the sun. They absolutely do.
Um, you said you were on commentary for the City game. Haaland, 23 goals in 13 games at the moment for club and country. Like, staggering. How are City generally? Because they are currently closest to Arsenal.
Ah, geez, man. Oh, they were okay. They were good. They weren't. I always find watching Man City difficult one to explain. There's never any like off the cuff. With Pep, it was very controlled. They dominated the ball. They didn't press particularly high up the pitch, which I was surprised with. As soon as they lost the ball, Everton actually had large spells of possession. City almost dropped into this low block themselves and then waited to win it back. Um, and they probed and they pressed. Everton had a couple of chances. I think Beto should have scored in the first half, similar to United going to Anfield. I think if Everton had gone there and Beto had scored that goal, he couldn't wrap his foot around it. It's almost I felt he should have. He was stretching for it, but he kind of got studs on it and hit the post. If that would have went in, that would have given Everton that 1 goal lead that they could hang on to. But as the game drifted, you could see Man City brought subs on. Cherky came on, he added something. Bernardo Silva came on. In fairness, added something. But they look good. They look decent. Manchester City, in fairness, and obviously with Haaland at the top end of the pitch, it was one of those games. It was just a routine 2-0 win for,
Yeah.
for Manchester
They've,
City.
they've, they've
Rock
already
solid.
forgotten it.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? They won't live long in the
Yeah.
memory, but
They told me that
no.
the Eddie had for months.
Yeah, so it was a bog standard. Pep will be delighted.
Yeah.
Got to take some players off ahead of their match against Villarreal tomorrow night. So, yeah, it was a good. Nothing notable, Joe.
Yeah.
Honestly, tomorrow I've almost forgotten about it already. To be honest with you, and I was working it. So, but we are covering them tomorrow night. So
Don't
I
miss it.
can't forget too
Don't
much.
miss it. Don't miss it tomorrow. Um, and then come here, very last one. So it seems Sean Dyche going to go in at Forest. Ange and his 39 days. Like in a parallel universe, Daniel Levy thought, do you know what? Go on then. Go on. Instead, he's been sacked twice in the space of about 3-4 months. How damaging are these 39 days for Ange? Like in the way that post Spurs, if you were his agent, you would have felt there's a right good shot of getting another Premier League job. Is his cachet now fallen mass? Is he going to struggle to get a Premier League job now because of this, or will clubs kind of say, to be fair, that's a basket case, that's not on him?
Yeah, a very good friend of mine from football, Mile Jedinak, that played at Crystal Palace, is on Ange's staff. So I spoke to Mile last night. Just giving him my condolences. Really, not really give away much, but he was very very disappointed, and he obviously felt that it was just a terrible situation for them that they got involved in because they walked into a shit storm that was nothing of their doing. The fans are obviously very, very upset at what happened with Nuno. Um, and then obviously there was just an atmosphere. He just said that they just felt it just wasn't, conducive to Ange bringing in his style of play. There was just a feeling around the place, and they kind of knew it straight away. And it's very hard to turn that around, especially when the fans are kind of have their backs up as well. So, to answer your question, I don't think it hurts him too much. I think the Spurs stuff probably hurts him a little bit more, with the way he went about it and his kind of stubbornness of playing Ange's football. And the only time he ever deviated from that was to win the Europa League. I don't think Ange's stock is done by any chance, by any shot. I think he will get another job. Will he get another in the Premier League? Maybe, but I'd say it's unlikely. But I mean, there's plenty of clubs around the world, Europe especially, that would love to take Ange on and would be big fans of the way that he plays. He will be back in work, absolutely no doubt. I mean, you could see him rocking up in Spain or Germany or Italy or something like that. Absolutely, I think that has that in him. It was just unfortunate, but I suppose when the job gets offered you, you take it,
Yeah.
and it's only when you walk through the door you might look around and go, "Holy shit, what have we done?" You know.
Well, I'm sure Sean Dyche is thinking to himself, this is a complete mess, but I haven't
Oh
worked
no,
since.
he loves that. Sean Dyche should be in his element in that now. Listen, this is this is Sean Dyche to walk in now and
Rolling up the sleeves.
big Churchillian speech to the fans, and like getting everyone back on board, and he will have that galvanizing effect. And they've obviously decided that relegation is a realistic possibility, and we just need to plug that hole for the short term. And we've got players that will suit the way that Sean Dyche plays, and we
True.
just need to get results. So I mean, relegation is fatal, and they've obviously decided that we're just going to get that out of here. Now we can't afford to take another risky one. And I think the fans will probably row in behind Dyche because he'll get a couple of results early. The owner will kind of, sink back into the background. and everything will go quiet again. And as I say in football, a couple of wins changes everything.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Thanks so much, Damien.
Thanks, Joe.